and welcome to episode 90 of Did You Bring the Hummus podcast. I'm Kimberly, your host, and I'm super excited to be here with you today. Did You Bring the Hummus is a podcast for all things vegan. Episodes post every Monday on your favorite podcast app. Before we get started, I have one very important question for you. Did you bring the hummus? Do you love the podcast? Would you get a kick out of hearing a shout out on a future episode? How about time to connect virtually with me and other listeners, quarterly or monthly? Or if you're a vegan business who would like to sponsor episodes of Did You Bring the Hummus, I'd love to chat. Find out more under the Support the Podcast tab on my website. Did you know that this podcast is a direct result of a public speaking project? I fully believe that without that level of practice, I would never have even thought to start a podcast. So, I'm now offering public speaking guidance and coaching, specifically for those who are terrified, but know that facing this fear is what will take them to the next level in their business, career, or life in general. Check out the Public Speaking 101 tab on my website to learn more and schedule a free call to find out if I'm the right person to help you navigate this journey. And finally, are you thinking about embarking on your own vegan journey? Book a free call with me to find out how my 12-week vegan voyage program can help. Today, I am joined by Annette and Graham Henry of Henry and Henry. They are the vegan breathing coaches. Annette and Graham are a husband and wife team who set out to educate and inspire others who also wish to make life changes. They run talks and classes, including meditation classes, but primarily around food, and have provided lunches for those curious to know more about how they eat. Trained in raw food science and preparation by Robert and Karin Dina, and in Buteyko Breathing by Patrick McKeown, Annette and Graham provide breathing re-education and plant-based nutrition workshops for both the beneficiaries of Salus Fatigue Foundation and as part of programs offered by Salus externally. In this episode, you hear their story, not just their vegan journey, but how they came together, changed each other's lives, and embarked on this mission of helping human animals and other than human animals, all while making the world a kinder, gentler, more compassionate place. Who knew breathing was so powerful? Hi, Annette. Hi, Graham. Welcome. Thanks so much for joining me.
Thank you for having us on your podcast.
Great to be here.
Yeah, I'm so glad. It did take us a while. We were back and forth scheduling conflicts and stuff, but it feels so good to sit down with you two this morning for me, this afternoon for you, and have this chat. As we always start here on Did You Bring the Hummus, please share with me your vegan journey.
Okay, well, I'll start because it starts with me. This is the longest vegan journey ever, I think, probably. It started is it more than 20 years ago now, and I had a condition which I'd never heard of before called endometriosis, and I had full-blown surgery for it because there was no keyhole at the hospital where I was being treated. So it was a big deal. And I had some fairly nasty hormone treatment after it to dampen down any resurgence of it. But it's chronic, and it did come back. And I was looking at a possible return to surgery, this time keyhole, but in a different part of the country, so I would have to travel. And I thought, I really don't want this. It's just been a big deal before. I thought, I just don't want this again. There must be some other way. And I went looking for alternatives. And I found something that my surgeon was very supportive of. So great. I still wanted more. And I walked into a bookshop one day and saw a book on healing endometriosis through nutrition. I thought, oh, okay, I'm going to have to buy that. And I'm going to have to, see what it says. Thankfully, it was a thick book full of, it was written by a nutritionist who'd been through the thing herself. And in her case, she'd included a lot of scientific research to back it up, which I absolutely needed, because throughout that whole process, none of the medics had said to me that nutrition would make a difference. They hadn't talked about food at all. It didn't come up. So I wasn't going to believe it very easily. So thankfully, she put it together just as I needed it. The book wasn't vegan, which at the time wouldn't have been of interest to me. That would have been a turn off straight away, unfortunately. But it did move me towards more whole foods and to really, she put no emphasis at all on meat. There was fish, admittedly, and there was a big emphasis on not having dairy if I happen to be from an atopic family, which again was a new word, hadn't heard of it before. And it turned out to be if you have, for example, hay fever, which I did. So I thought, right, that's me, dairy's off. And straight away, overnight, I stopped having dairy and started eating these better foods, really. And in short, there's no need to go on any longer. I never went back to the doctor.
Oh, wow.
Not with this. I didn't have the surgery. I didn't need anything more. It subsided. Interestingly, also, my sister, that I have two, all three of us had endometriosis. We all had operations for it. The next sister down, or the next daughter down, phoned me up one day and said, "What's that book you read? Because I want to do it." And I thought, oh no, yeah, this is going to be interesting. You don't read books. This is not going to happen. But she did. She read it. She also implemented everything, never had any more surgery. The other sister, for whatever reason, chose not to. And she's in that time, and I'm talking, good 20 years here, she's had 5 surgeries for it.
Oh.
So I couldn't have been more convinced about the power of nutrition. And that's what set me off. And it was quite empowering, actually, to realize that you can do something about your own health.
Yeah.
Because I hadn't known that before. I'd always outsourced my health to the medical community. And I was kind of realizing that wasn't always the thing to do. And that's what set it off, really. So dairy was off and has been off ever since. I've never gone back to it. By the way, the hay fever resolved that summer. Later that summer, I didn't get hay fever until I accidentally ate some potatoes covered in butter. So that was a revelation to me as well.
Yeah.
So I kept that going, and little by little, things changed. But I think I'm going to pass you to Graham now, because when we got together, by this stage, I was eating pretty much exclusively organic, no dairy, quite a lot of whole foods, no meat. I very rarely had meat. It was a really rare. I wasn't vegan, so I wasn't opposed to having it, but I just didn't want it. And so when I got together with him, I was like, okay, how am I going to present this to this new person? So take it from there.
Yeah, so we're talking about 15 years ago now when we got together, and it was the second time we'd kind of met in our lifetime, because we met very young as students back in 1983 on a year abroad in Germany, and we were good friends. I mean, it wasn't anything more than that. It was no romantic involvement. It was just really good friends, felt very comfortable with each other. And then we went on our respective ways. We lived our lives, and up to about 2909, we'd met like once in the interim. So that's once in 26 years or something. Anyway, we made contact again, and something clicked, and we got together. We got engaged. Eventually, we got married. Around that time, I'd been struggling with really a lifelong weight problem. And I think I started in around at the age of 11, getting overweight. And my parents took me to the doctors because they were concerned about me being overweight. And the doctor said, yes, he's obese, and he needs to lose weight. But there was no advice on how I should do that. So I just tried various diets, crash diets, counting calories, etc., starving myself, feeling pretty miserable. When I did lose weight, because I couldn't sustain that miserable way of eating, I just put the weight back on again. And really, that was the pattern of my life for the next 30 years or more. I was working in quite a high pressure job during my career, during my earlier career. I was a sales manager. I was traveling abroad a lot. I was living in hotels. I was eating breakfast in hotels, having lunch in restaurants, eating dinner in restaurants, and generally on my own. And obviously, one of the things we do when we're on our own, feeling lonely, one of the ways to pass time is to eat, and you sit in a restaurant, you maybe have a bottle of wine or a few beers. And that was very much for over a course of a long time. So I just kept putting on the weight, and I got to over 200 pounds in weight. I always have to think about that, because in the UK we generally use stones and whatever. We now live in Germany, and I use kilos. So I was well over 100 kilos, and I wasn't very healthy. I was on blood pressure medication. My cholesterol was not as low as they would like it to be. The doctors would like it to be. So I was on statins for a while. And anyway, we met up, we got together, as I say, in 2009. And it was really quite remarkable because I just really adopted the way of eating that Annette did because it was easy. I didn't need to, it was too complicated to always have separate things. And for the first time in my life, I started to lose weight without trying. It was incredible. So I didn't count calories. I didn't worry about what I was eating. I just knew that this food was actually suiting me. And it was the kind of food that Annette had eaten to resolve her endometriosis problem. So this happened over a period of 2, 3, 4 years. I was eating more plant-based food. Eventually, I cut out meat, as Annette had already done. The only thing that we were still eating was fish, and I lost weight. I lost 100 kilos. Sorry, where are we? So that no 40. I lost over 40 kilos, 100 pounds.
Okay.
And got down to more or less where I am now. I was able to come off blood pressure medication. I was able to come off the statin drugs. I've not taken either since. And that's now what, about 12, 13, 14 years later after changing my diet. So it was life-changing, really. So we kind of like came together on the same page very much. And I think it was about 2013, 2014, where we'd already made a lot of changes, become much more plant-based, where we developed an interest in raw food, raw plant-based food. And I'll go back to Annette and let her talk a little bit more about that, because it was quite a revolutionary part of our journey, or evolutionary, both.
Raw food, yes. When we were very high raw for a few years, which we're not so much now. Fair, I mean, we eat quite a lot, but the thing that did it for me was I don't really cook very well. So it seems like being creative with raw ingredients, I was quite good at that. But that did mean, in my case, that because we did this for guests as well, I was quite good at making things like cheesecakes. Well, great, they were good. And the chocolate things I made, excellent. However, imagine just how much fat there was there. I don't know, because there's coconut oil. And the salads that we had before with loads and loads of vegetables, which is what I saw, were kind of sprayed with all sorts of different oils. And, so there were lots of nuts and seeds and additional oils. I calculated eventually, because I needed to, that I was probably consuming over 50% of my calories as fat.
Oh, wow.
That's really not ideal.
Yeah.
I didn't put weight on because that's my physiology. However, I clearly developed a problem. I had I'm showing my liver area here. And when I palpated it, it was tender, and I think that's what had caused it. I developed chronic fatigue after a bout of flu, which made me stop and take notice. And I realized I actually instinctively, while I was just coming out of the flu, all I wanted was fresh fruit and some salad, light vegetables, salad vegetables. And that was quite instructive to me as well. And I thought, I've got to do something about, I'm not doing the right thing with fat here. And I had been listening to different doctors like Neil Barnard and Michael Greger, sort of half dismissing what they were saying, because I was still of the idea of the mentality that sugar was the problem. And they were saying fat. And I was thinking, okay, right. So we needed to have a rethink, and we did. And so that was 2018 when I had to really, really turn my food on its head in order to help my health once again. And at the same time, I think we started in 2019, we got ourselves on a course with two really superb trainers called Doctors Rick and Karin Dina, based in the United States, in California. And their course is Mastering Raw Food Nutrition. And it's based on whole foods and not on oils. So that was great. It was perfect. It was exactly what we needed. And it's not obsessively raw. You learn, I mean, it's a full year of quite an intensive course. And we learned all about plant foods generally, and what it means to cook them, which ways of cooking are better if you're going to cook, all of those things. So it was great. That really revolutionized what we were doing. And that's been a huge part of the journey. And it was towards the end of that, really. I think we'd already given up fish by then. What we hadn't done, and I know it actually happened here, where we decided it was probably safe to call ourselves vegan. Because you know what, with the age we are, vegans for us were they were kind of lanky-haired, pale, thin people who invaded other people's property, and we just didn't. That's what we saw, you know. And
Yeah.
we joined, by this stage, we joined the vegan business tribe, which I know you're familiar with because you're a member too.
Mhm.
And we realized that vegans actually, no, they're just actually very compassionate people in all sorts of ways.
Mhm.
And that's really where that's where we became vegan.
Yeah, I think just to backtrack a little bit on what Annette said as well, that, you know, when she talked about the period we'd gone through eating a lot of like what is often called gourmet raw food, which has often a lot of fat in it as well. And I think that did affect Annette possibly more than me, because I didn't put weight on again, but it wasn't ideal for Annette. And I think it also shows that our journey wasn't linear. And this is the case, that, you know, it's almost like we found the secrets, you know, to my weight loss earlier on. And we had this journey that, you know, that was just kind of consistent, going in one direction. But we've made constantly tweaks and had new realizations on the way. And I think that's really important, that we don't ever want to think that we've got it completely sorted, that, you know, there are still things that we're learning. And I mean, the veganism thing as well, as Annette said, it's almost like we stumbled into it. It was kind of, you know, it was really the health angle that put us onto the plant foods and not the animal suffering angle. But since we've become fully plant-based, that part of it has grown. It's almost like it's imbued us with a sense of realization and compassion for animals. So now we think, how could we ever not have realized this before? That, you know, all of these awful things that go on in the world and the cruelty to animals, and how could we not be aware of that? And I think that's really, you know, it's all together now. It's all, the circle has completed, you know, the environment as well, of course. So all of those issues that are important to vegans, I would say.
Yeah.
So yeah, so we came to Berlin. We escaped from the UK in 2020. We both decided, when the Brexit referendum was held, that we still wanted to be very much part of Europe. It was part of our history, you know, being students of languages, foreign languages, of German. So we actually moved to Berlin in 2020. And going back to you, Annette, we set up a business, didn't we?
We set up a business. Initially, it was around food, and as we've talked about, being able to convey what we'd learnt in our year-long course with Rick and Karin Dina. And it was difficult, because guess what? There was a pandemic and we couldn't do anything in person. So starting off in Germany, and bureaucracy, there's a rumor about bureaucracy in Germany, it's true. And so, you know, we had that to deal with, and it was tricky. So it was brilliant to be part of the business tribe, I have to say, and it still is. But then something else happened, also part of the pandemic, and that was that I got COVID. No big deal. I didn't get thankfully didn't get, you know, a really bad result from that. But I did get the breathlessness, and I couldn't come up the stairs very easily. I had to take breaks or just avoid the stairs, come up the lift or whatever. And at the same time, I was reading a book by an author called James Nestor. It was a best-selling book called Breath. Have you heard of it?
I have. I read it. Yeah.
And I thought I'd heard about it a lot, and I kept thinking, oh yeah, I'll read it. Okay, I'll read it. You know, I'm interested in health. It'll be interesting. And the more and more I read it, the more I realized, oh, I have dysfunctional breathing. Didn't realize this. And without even thinking of any particular consequences, I just thought, I have dysfunctional breathing. I have to put that right. So that was a priority straight away, very, very quickly. This is fairly early on in 2022. and to the point where it was starting to have an effect, and I was aware of the benefits of it fairly soon on. So I thought, right, I want to teach this. I really want to teach this. The fact that people don't breathe effectively is a big deal. It affects so many parts of your life. And so I applied to the Buteyko Clinic International, which is in Ireland, and I did the course. I got through it quite quickly because I was on it. I really was. And I had to do case studies, and I was allowed to use friends and relatives as well as clients and what have you. And so because it was pandemic time and all of my case studies were online, I made Graham a case study because I wanted to do, it was face to face. Yeah. So he was quite a good case study, actually. And whilst he didn't have the level of dysfunctional breathing I had, there was room for improvement. And so it was good. It was a real thing.
Well,
so,
there was an actual elephant in the room you haven't mentioned, and the elephant in the room was me, because I've had a real problem with snoring, and which is something that actually we now know that you can do something about through retraining your breathing. And being a case study for Annette alerted me to the fact that, I could do something to improve my own breathing. I could also make Annette's life a lot better.
Because I had insomnia and still do, and I'd had it for 30 years. And so my sleep was just really slow. I mean, this is another really slow burn story. Starting to get better. My sleep's been getting better and better. Again, not nice and linear, but it's getting better. And this is because I'm breathing differently, which is huge after that long length of time. And you'd think post-menopause, it's only going to go downhill. But no, I'm actually getting better. And he's not snoring either.
Yeah, so at the time I was a case study, and I was like, I could see how passionate and enthusiastic she was about the breathing research. She was reading books, she was listening to podcasts, she was reading scientific articles, really consuming, devouring all this information. And it hit home with me. I thought, this is incredible. I can see what a difference it's making to her, what a difference it's making to me. I need to study this as well. So I enrolled in a course with the same coach, and he is a world-renowned coach. So we're kind of learning from the best. He's worked with a lot of like military organizations. He's worked with top elite sports teams. He's worked with well-known pop or music stars, pop stars. That's not a bit old-fashioned, does it? Well-known musicians, to improve their breathing, to give them, more stamina on stage, etc. We thought, we're going to go with the best, and so I decided to learn. It was a different course. The course that I do was to become a functional breathing coach, and it's really to help people to reduce breathlessness and improve performance in sport, in life in general, and also concentration and focus, like particularly in a workplace, or for anyone. And it was fascinating. And I did it very quickly because I wanted to really, be able to join Annette in doing it together with her. And so now we're both qualified breathing instructors, whereas Annette's got the same qualification that I have, but she's got another dimension, which is to be able to help people with health conditions as well, which is really key. So we kind of complement each other in terms of what we're doing. So we thought, right, we want to do this alongside the nutrition. We want to put this probably form uppermost, because this is really exciting to us, and it's something that we feel is neglected, because I don't think often everyone hears about nutrition as being an important health pillar, but we all breathe. But how often do you hear that perhaps your breathing is not quite as functional as it could be? And actually, it's estimated something like 80% up to 80% of the population breathes dysfunctionally. So if we can help people to breathe better, then great. So what do we call ourselves?
Yeah.
So
we came up with the vegan breathing coaches after a fair bit of deliberation, because obviously it was a bit of a leap for us, having spent quite a long time being scared of the word.
Mhm.
And but we thought this is who we are. It means that as soon as people see that, they know something about us straight away. They know something about our values, which we thought was important. We also are aware that our values are. It started in terms of chronology. It started with health. A lot of people share those values. They want to be healthier. That's normal. People generally do care about the environment. They don't necessarily know what they can do about it, but they mostly do. So they have that too. And you know what? People love animals. I know
Yeah.
it gets shown up in the most peculiar way sometimes, but people generally do share those values as long as we don't push too hard to tell them why they're evil for eating animals. There's no point. That it doesn't work like that, and it would have alienated me. I feel very fortunate that nobody ever beat me with a stick or whatever. It was always easy to get there, and eventually to hear the messages that were just there. And I didn't have the resistance once I'd stopped eating meat anyway, so I was able to listen. And it was an easy journey, and I wish that for everybody, because everybody takes their own time over it. And I know once you realize what an animal's going through, you do understand why a lot of vegans feel very frustrated and very upset. I do get it, and well, we feel it sometimes anyway when we see things on TV, for example. But
there's also another angle as well, which is well, there's two things actually. It's quite interesting because a lot of people ask us why or what is vegan about breathing. Because we they see our stand at an event and they say the vegan breathing. What's vegan breathing? And we say no, it's breathing, but we're vegan. So it gives us the opportunity to talk about what being vegan means to us. And that's that you never know, some kind of penny might drop there and people realize and they think about it. But there's another thing which is a very, very powerful thing. I always feel quite moved when Annette describes this. And do you want to talk about the image that you talk about an animal?
Yeah, this is another of those realizations that came to me. I've obviously worked kind of day and night almost on my own breathing, and I'm going to stand up again just to give you a demonstration, and I'll explain what I'm doing.
Yeah.
Okay. So when you breathe properly, which I just tried to do very quickly, which doesn't really work ideally, your diaphragm moves, and it's the whole rib cage, and it's not the upper chest. It's nice and gentle. It's quite beautiful, and it feels lovely when it's right. And becoming so aware of this, you can't really fail, I think, personally, to witness this in other beings. And animals do it beautifully. They don't get dysfunctional breathing to the same degree that we do, probably for obvious reasons. And I see animals doing this, and I think, this is life. Life is happening. That breath is life. How could I possibly be involved in bringing that to a premature close? I can't justify it, and I wouldn't now. It's out of the question, and that is given me something that I hadn't seen before, and I feel that's really quite special.
And I think the act of breathing and the act of breathing calmly as well, and because it can be very meditational, very mindful. It kind of raises your awareness about things, and we know how people that practice mindfulness and meditation often become more compassionate because it increases the part of the brain. It's like a muscle which is about being compassionate, and I think that it comes with that as well. So I think for us, it has changed our perceptions quite a lot, hasn't it?
It has, and I used to meditate a lot, hoping that it would help me sleep. It didn't. I even taught meditation, which I enjoyed doing. I got a lot from it, but I hadn't rectified my breathing, and I was almost definitely breathing too quickly, which means you're meant to be in fight or flight mode only 5% of the day. And I would say mine was getting close. I was probably closer to 100, just because normal. That was my normal. I didn't, and it felt normal to me. I didn't know I was breathing too fast until I really, took notice. And that meant that I was very easily flung into anxiety. It didn't take much, And that was difficult. Like, why, I'm doing all this meditation. Why is this happening? And because I was my body's constantly giving my brain the message that I'm not safe. I'm breathing fast as if there's some kind of danger. And being able to slow that down has been absolutely beautiful. And it means I don't have that background hum of anxiety anymore. And I'm not so likely to just fly off the handle with panic or anxiety, which I certainly was when I had that chronic fatigue. I was getting upset and anxious about, I actually remember bursting into tears one day because I didn't know which coat to wear. I mean, it got out of hand,
Yeah.
It's and to know that people don't know this, it makes me really want to tell as many people as possible, because it affects every body system. And that with something like chronic fatigue or fibromyalgia or any of these conditions, they affect all your body systems. And so it makes such a lot of sense to address breathing. It's not the answer to absolutely everything, but if it's going to make a difference, it's going to make a positive difference. You have to try it, because then at least you've narrowed it down to what you still have to do, because you haven't got the whole array of symptoms and nastiness and horrible reactions that don't make any sense to you.
Yeah.
I think also just to mention what Annette just said again about her, the periods where she was feeling that she couldn't cope, and as to witness that happening as a partner, as to witness someone you love suffering in that way and not knowing what to do about it, and then to see that change in someone over a period of time, to see that becoming more calm and being able to self-regulate as well, rather than having to go to the doctor and the doctor give a prescription for a drug that artificially puts your body into a different mode.
I didn't do, I will say.
No. And in principle, that's something you wouldn't do.
No.
But this is, unfortunately, if you think about the world at large, that is happening.
Yeah.
And we talked about the percentage of people that are breathing dysfunctionally. And when we say dysfunctionally, it may not be evident or obvious. It may be just slightly out of kilter. But over time, it can actually make a difference, because it puts you in that slightly raised stress situation, that sympathetic mode, the nervous system sympathetic mode. Then we know just to what degree stress over a period of time, chronic stress, can lead to inflammation in the body, can lead to illness. If we can eradicate that and have a tool that we can implement whenever we want to change things, then that's fantastic. And also, if we can help people to just retrain their everyday breathing, rather than just come in with an intervention when you need it, actually to retrain how you breathe, your default breathing, that can be life-changing. So what causes that dysfunctional breathing today? Well, actually, it's our modern lifestyles.
Yeah.
So if you think about work, if you think about world events, struggling to meet deadlines, shopping, money worries, all of these things can affect our breathing, either making us breathe too fast or hold our breath. And when that happens all the time, then it's going to have an effect on us. And to know that we can actually then step in and change how we breathe, to change how we feel, to change how we perform, is potentially life-changing. And that's why we find it so exciting, and we want to share that with others. So that's what we're about, and that's what we do, and that's our journey.
And there is one other aspect to plant-based eating, especially if it's whole food vegan. Your breathing will be at an advantage, because processed foods and all animal foods stimulate faster breathing. So if you've already eradicated them, then you're you've done a little bit of the journey without even trying.
That's really cool. As you're talking through this, I was kind of in the back of my head thinking about my own breathing, my husband's breathing, but in particular, my dad. So I remember as a child that we always lived in a home that had stairs. And so I remember that every time my dad got to the top of the stairs, he would let out a big breath, and then he would seem out of breath. And even, he was a young dad, not super young, but, in his 20s, 30s. And it just seemed like, why is my dad out of breath? And one day I remember I asked him, And it was a habit of his to hold his breath while walking up the stairs.
Yeah. Yes.
That's
Wow.
really
Yeah.
interesting to hear, because there are so many scenarios where that can happen. So you've just described one.
Yeah.
Another one is, for example, it seems really, really minor, but when you're concentrating on something like, for example, if you're chopping vegetables
Mm.
and you're focusing all your attention on not cutting your finger, then sometimes I've noticed myself, I hold my breath as I'm doing that. And then, of course, at the end of that, you're thinking, it takes a while for your breathing to return back to normal. But there's another really good example
There
where,
is, and it's computer work, and specifically checking your email,
Mm.
because you don't know what's coming.
Yeah.
A lot of people hold their breath when they do that, so much so that it's become known as email apnea. So like
Oh.
sleep apnea, but people literally holding their breath when they're checking their email. Posture doesn't help either, because obviously you're a little bit bent over. But yeah, email apnea is a thing.
Huh.
And I noticed I was holding my breath. It was another thing. I mean, I think the only thing I wasn't doing was I wasn't breathing through my mouth, but I did just about everything else. I get up early, and I tend to get up before Graham. So I tiptoe around, go very slowly. And somehow in my subconscious, I'd concluded that if I held my breath, I'd be even quieter. Not so. It is not the case at all. So I stopped doing that now. I breathe when I'm getting ready.
how do
Good.
you know if you're not breathing as well as you could do? I mean, there is a lot of different signs, and one of them, for example, is when you wake up in the morning, do you often feel tired? Do you have a dry mouth? If you do, that means that potentially you're sleeping with your mouth open, and that can cause issues with your breathing. That can cause snoring. It can cause sleep apnea. So that's one sign. Annette?
What, sleeping with your the sleeping one, or
No, other signs. What
of
would you say of if you're the cold hands and feet?
I see. Well,
Yeah. Sorry.
Other signs of that may mean that your breathing it isn't quite what it should be without even checking your breathing. And this applied to me: cold hands and cold feet most of the time, and that's because I wasn't oxygenating myself properly. Because I wasn't breathing properly deeply, and this is a bit of an issue as well. A lot of people hear the phrase, "Oh, relax, take a deep breath," and they interpret that as a big breath. And often it's up here in the upper chest. There's no good there at all. It doesn't need to be big. It needs to be literally deep, which means it goes to the lower lobes of the lungs, because that's the only place where the gas exchange can take place. And so when you do take these soft, gentle, but deep breaths, you get warmer hands and warmer feet, and it's been great when I go to bed in winter now, because I can actually warm them up, because rather than stay cold for a very, very long time. So that's another one. But there is another, and I don't think I did this to the same degree until I cracked a rib, and then I really did.
Ooh.
But it's where a lot of, I'm going to say women, because I think it's mostly women, have a tendency to think it's, I don't know, vulgar or whatever it is. I don't quite know what the thinking is, to see the tummy moving in and out, and it doesn't help with looking slim. They don't breathe properly. They don't breathe diaphragmatically, and that can that's not going to work either, because you're not going to breathe deeply, and you're not going to bring that air down to the lungs where the gas exchange takes place. And you need your diaphragm to be moving. There are all sorts of things happen when you move your diaphragm. It massages your internal organs. It massages your heart. Who doesn't want to massage their heart?
Yeah.
It's a beautiful thing to do, and I'd really like more people to do it without it being understood as a big breath, because that's not it.
So if you're waking up in the morning tired, as I say, if you've got a dry mouth, if you snore at night like I was doing, then you think, well, how can you change that? There's a really easy way to stop snoring through the mouth, and that's to keep your mouth shut at night. But how do you do that? And that's a challenge. Well, by retraining your daytime breathing, you can already do something about changing the velocity and strength of your breathing. So, and that's what causes the snoring, because if you breathe air in fast and hard, it's going to cause more friction And that's what creates that turbulence, that noise of snoring. So what we do is we retrain people how to breathe as they should be, which is more softly, more gently. And the key thing is how do you breathe? Where do you breathe?
It has to be, you have to breathe through your nose. That has to be what I'm going to have to say this, Graham, and it's always one of those controversial areas. In order to breathe through your nose, in some cases, especially at night, because you're not conscious, I don't need it, as it turns out, but some people use tape. We now tend to promote tape that is fits around the mouth and kind of persuades the lips to stay together, because obviously it's a scary proposition, and we know this whenever we say it to anybody. And certainly when it was said to me, I thought, you've got to be joking. I was not very charitable when I heard that one. I didn't say it out loud, but I had the thoughts. And so we promote this one now that has a kind of elasticity to bring the lips together. You can still speak if you need to. If you absolutely need to breathe through your mouth, which sometimes happens with certain degrees of sleep apnea, then that can still happen. So we feel that that's safer. But if you know that you're okay with a little bit of tape across here, do it, because the difference is huge. Overnight, it stops you from mouth snoring. You can't mouth snore if your mouth's shut. You just can't. And the nasal snoring, which Graham's had a bit of an issue with this, and it's retraining the breathing then to breathe light, because as he said, if you're breathing light, if you're taking a gentle breath in and a soft, relaxed and gentle breath out to practice and train, and you bring that into your nighttime, then again, how easy is it to snore when you're breathing really, really softly? And if it becomes much more normal for you, then it does get into your nighttime habits as well. And his snoring has reduced dramatically. I mean, it's huge. Most nights, almost nothing. And I'm very rarely disturbed. So it's wonderful.
I have worn tape over my mouth now every night for the last 2 years. But I do want to reiterate, because this has been a controversial subject, particularly a lot about this on social media. And we would never advise, certainly children, not to tape their mouths at night. It's okay for them to practice maybe with their parents during the daytime for 10 or 15 minutes to see if they can manage it. But it's what I do is I tape it from top to bottom, but not all over my lips, just top to bottom. I have gaps at either side, and it just encourages the lips to stay shut. And you know what? It's made an absolute difference to me. I've never felt uncomfortable, but the other tape that goes around the mouth is much safer. If people are more comfortable using that, then by all means go with that one. But it can make a big difference. And it's quite exciting for us that, I don't need to retire to a different room now, retreat to a different room in the middle of the night, because Annette's getting a little bit frustrated at not being able to sleep. So that's been a really big thing for us. But this whole thing as well about breathing through the nose and breathing through the mouth, it's the mouth actually is not really intended for breathing, other than in very, very intense sports when you just perhaps can't get sufficient oxygen in your lungs to actually be able to continue what you're doing.
But an emergency, isn't it?
Yeah, an emergency, if you like. At all other times, it should be breathing through the nose, in and out. And this is, people often don't realize this, and it can also affect the shape of your face, of your jaw, if you breathe through your mouth, particularly at an early age when those are being formed. So it's always great to be able to encourage children, and parents to encourage children to breathe through their nose, but it's got to be fun for them to learn how to do it as well. And I think that for me, I realized as well that some people have anatomical challenges with their nose. They may have a deviated septum, or they may have just a very narrow or small nose. I think that's the case with me, because I now run. Well, I'm saying now, I haven't done it for a few months, but I was running and jogging with, I had to wear a tape, one of those anti-snore tapes that you might know that you put across your nose to widen the nostrils to be able to continue to nose breathe when I run. But I can run for I can run for 2 to 3 miles without once breathing through my mouth now,
Wow.
because it allows sufficient air. I had to work up to it gradually. You can't force it. You've got to go at a pace that enables you to be able to continue it. But once you can do that, you get better oxygenation breathing through your nose, believe it or not, than breathing through your mouth. You might think that, well, you get more air through your mouth, so you can oxygenate your body better. You don't, because it goes into the upper chest rather than into the deep lungs that Annette was talking about, where the gas exchange takes place, so that you then get more oxygenation of the blood. And you also, there's a lot of things that go on during the body, like biochemically, but it basically means that you enhance your breathing muscles through doing that, because there's more resistance breathing through your nose. So your muscles initially have to work harder, but by doing that, it's like training your muscles, they become more efficient. So you have better performance over time. So all of these things can help. So
I think there's one other thing that I have to say about nasal breathing, because it's exciting. It's that in the paranasal sinuses, as you breathe in, you take in a substance called nitric oxide, and nitric oxide dilates the airways, but it also is antipathogenic. So it has an antibacterial and antiviral effects. So it's our first line of defense. They actually used nitric oxide on COVID patients in the pandemic in order to help them to recover better.
Oh, wow.
Exogenously. So you know, they didn't make them breathe through their nose in order to get it. They gave them extra doses, but we have that all the time if we just.
There's also another thing which, and again, it from personal experience, I suffered from panic attacks and anxiety in my 30s. And I remember sitting in a very quiet, hushed concert hall, listening to a Beethoven piano concerto and wanting to rush out of the concert hall because I felt an anxiety attack coming on, and I felt I couldn't breathe, and I was right in the middle of a row. You know what it's like. It's horrible. You're trapped. I don't ever sit in the middle of a row anymore now since that event. But this was in one of the world's great concert halls in Amsterdam. And I was really scared because I could feel my heart beating. It felt like I thought, I'm going to have to faint here. Otherwise, I'm going to, I'm going to die. And that's a common thing for people who suffer panic and anxiety attacks, because what happens is you start breathing, over breathing or hyperventilating. And by doing that, your body is breathing off too much carbon dioxide. And when that happens, your blood vessels constrict and the oxygen is not getting to your brain anymore. You feel out of breath, panic. And you know the old trick about getting a paper bag and breathing into a paper bag until it, and what you're doing there is you're breathing back in carbon dioxide to rebalance your body's chemistry. And that's how it works. So a really good exercise to help if you're in that situation, if you're starting to feel panicky, is just cup your hands over your nose and gently breathe in and breathe out. And because there's still going to be some air coming in between your fingers, it's better than a paper bag because you're still getting a bit of oxygen, but also you'll be breathing in back CO2 that you're breathing out. And eventually that'll help to restore the body's balance, the chemistry, and your breathing will return to normal, because carbon dioxide actually helps the oxygen to release from your blood cells to get to where it's needed. It's like the instruction that you now need to leave that blood cell and you need to go to the muscles and the tissues and the brain, and it calms you down. So that's why light, slow breathing can calm down, because it helps carbon dioxide also to build up in your blood, in your body, and to perform its role. It's not just a waste gas. It's really, really important. So these are all the kind of things that we train our clients to, or our students, should I say, to do. And it can be life-changing, because if you've got a lifetime of slightly off-kilter breathing and it's causing those issues, the poor focus, breathlessness, like your father going up the stairs, that could be because he was very sensitive to the buildup of carbon dioxide. We help to desensitize that so that he will be able to then feel less breathless, but it takes a little bit of time to
He
do.
could also have done with just breathing as he was going upstairs. Though.
Right.
Well, yeah, but
Did he change that when you drew his attention to it?
Yeah, I think now he's much he's much better at it, but it was so ingrained that I think it still happens. Yeah.
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 But yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
Breaking those habits
Yeah.
is quite demanding, but so worth
Mhm.
doing.
Yeah.
It really is. So our goal really is to we want to bring this to as many people as possible, and we're looking to work with some of the adult education schools to see if they will put it on their curriculum, so
Yeah.
that people who are interested in, who may have issues with breathlessness, etc., can do that. I mean, even like asthma, for example, and that's something that Annette works with people who've got those kind of conditions, because if you're breathing in through your mouth, you're irritating the airways, because you're bringing in dry air, dry unfiltered air,
Cold air as well.
cold air, and that can irritate the lungs. Whereas if you're breathing through your nose is filtering it, your nose is moistening it. It's much better for someone suffering from asthma to breathe through their nose, because it will help to offset those symptoms and manage those symptoms better. So yeah, and we also would like to get into companies as well, because if you can train employees who are coming to work tired and unfocused because through dysfunctional breathing they've not had good night's sleep, or they're feeling anxious, then of course we can help we can work with them to improve that and improve their productivity and their happiness in life generally.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Do you work with individuals as well?
Yeah, that's most of what I've done, which I love, because it's somebody who really needs it usually, because obviously they're not going to attend a full course without needing it, and that's very rewarding most of the time. But I've also been working with a fatigue foundation in Britain, so that's online, and that's very rewarding as well, because they really can make something of it, and it's great when I get feedback about how that's made a difference to them. I love that.
Yeah.
So, yeah, both one-to-one and groups.
Mm-hmm.
We'd like to leave a little tip as well. I think Annette wanted to
please.
talk about slow breathing.
Yeah.
Yeah, didn't you?
Yeah, I do really, because this has made I mean, I think I need to put together an entire lecture on slow breathing, because it's just it's magnificent, the difference it can make, the impact it can have. And this is what I wasn't doing above all. I think this was probably my biggest issue, to the point where it used to wake me up in the night that I was breathing so fast that it woke me up. Because again, my body's giving my brain the message, oh, there's something to be on alert for. So, wake up. And I didn't know, even when I did know that was necessary, I tried to slow it down. And I can remember very early on, I couldn't slow it down. I thought, I haven't got control of my breathing here. This is a bit of an issue. But anyway, lots and lots of practice, and the differences are enormous. I'm sleeping better, as I said, the anxiety is reduced. So I think I'm also working on the fatigue symptoms that come back when I have a stressful situation to deal with. When Graham was in hospital, that kicked off another one. And I want more resilience. And so I'm working on my vagus nerve. Now, if you've heard of it, you'll know it's the largest cranial nerve. It goes from the brain down to the body and back up again. In fact, it's probably more appropriate to talk about it going up, because about 80% of the messaging goes up from the body to the brain. And so to work on your vagal tones, again, a bit like training a muscle, makes a lot of sense. And slow breathing will do this. Because and it's the most portable. It's the one that's there all the time. You can be working on your breathing in all sorts of situations. I mean, if you're in a boring meeting, do a bit of slow breathing. Nobody's going to notice. Work on your vagus nerve. And I think the key thing here is, if you're going to do it, slow it down in a way that suits you, because if your breathing's quite fast, then these recommendations that you get to do a certain number of breaths, a certain number of seconds on your in breath and a certain number on the out breath, it's too hard at first. Yes, the ideal is about 6 breaths per minute. It's not ideal for some people. If you can't do it, you're going to end up breathing big in order to make that possible. And that will ruin your biochemistry. So it's not going to work for you very well anyway. So go where you are. So to take in a few seconds of a breath in, and if you can make it slightly longer on the way out, do so, because that will help. That's where the relaxation comes, because when you inhale, that activates the sympathetic part of the nervous system, which is actually the fight and flight one. But when you exhale, it activates the parasympathetic, the rest, digest, and recover one. And that's where you start training your vagus nerve to become more resilient and to learn that it is safe. It is safe to recover. It's safe to sleep. The world is safe, unless there's an emergency you actually have to deal with. And then great, that's when you need your sympathetic nervous system to jump in. But most of the time we don't. Most of our life doesn't involve running away from a dangerous animal. We've passed that stage. And so that slow breathing, it's really just a case of taking a soft, gentle breath in and a slow, relaxed and gentle breath out. And to keep doing that and to practice it daily. Ideally, if you know that you need it, to do it over the course of 60 minutes a day, which you break up into 5 or 10 minutes and possibly as much as 15 minutes before you go to sleep. So that you help yourself to have a restful night's sleep. And if you can get it to be properly deep, do that. If you can't, don't worry about that straight away. Let that come later. But keep it light, keep it slow. And then if you're able eventually to get to that ideal 6 breaths per minute, you take 4 seconds in and 6 seconds out. You don't have to get there quickly. Any slowing of your breathing is going to make you feel different and feel better. So it is as easy as it sounds. The difficulty is having the commitment to do it and the belief that it will make a difference, because this can be quite subtle and it can take quite a long time. Some things happen very quickly. Some changes really do happen quickly. In fact, people I've taught, they seem to very often respond more positively and more quickly than I get to. But I've stuck with it. I'm convinced, and it's paying off. But it's taken a long time and I'm still working on it. I've had years of messing with myself, didn't realize that messing my breathing up and my health in general. I've got a lot to overturn.
And if you have a stuffy nose and you find it difficult to breathe through your nose, then there are exercises to unblock the nose as well. But rather than going into it now, we have an exercise on our website as well. So unless you've got a problem with your anatomical issue with your nose and you still can't breathe through your nose, most of these things should help to resolve stuffy noses, allergies, rhinitis, etc. So it really is quite exciting.
Yeah, this is amazing. And, selfishly, so I know this will all help me, but that then reminds me that it will help the listeners too, because I am a big time snorer. And my poor husband, thankfully he's a heavy sleeper, but if I fall asleep before him, it does keep him up a little bit. But this breathing more slowly, I'm excited to talk with him about it, to have him listen to this episode when it goes out, and for us to start practicing. I have read that book by James Nestor, and we did start taping our mouths here and there, but we didn't stick with it. Even though both of us were like, hey, do you feel different? I think I feel different. And it was starting to feel like, oh, I am breathing through my nose more regularly. And my yoga practice has helped me understand where that breath goes. So he doesn't do yoga. So it's still a practice for him, trying to figure out, how do I get it down there? But for me, I know how to get it down there, but I don't always get it down there. So this idea of being mindful and trusting, like you said, that it may take a while, but this is like the answer to so many things, to helping us be able to tune into if there is something wrong. Now we've gotten all that other stuff out of the way, and then we can understand, oh, okay, I need a little more help here or there. But the empowerment that we'll have by just learning how to breathe in the way our body wants us to, much in the way that going vegan helps us soothe and nourish ourselves in the way that our body wants us to. It all is such a beautiful circle that you have going on. And I can't thank you both enough for being here with me today.
Oh, we've loved it.
Yeah, we have.
So I have one more question for you. How does hummus show up in your life?
Wow, this question. Okay, well, traditionally, to some degree, we've done the usual recipe, although not with oil.
Mhm.
We think that the tahini is enough usually. So, but sometimes we use sprouted chickpeas,
Ooh.
and I just steam them for about 10 to 15 minutes, and that's enough. And they make perfectly good hummus.
Mm.
However, one of us, and I shan't mention who, struggles just a little bit with chickpeas sometimes digestively. So sometimes we dispense with the chickpeas, which means technically it's not really hummus, but who wants to be technical? And we've done a raw version, a raw hummus. Now this is with courgette. It means it's much
Zucchini.
zucchini. Yeah, courgette, zucchini. Yeah. So it's an easy thing to do. You just basically I take the green off because green hummus slightly unusual. And also that probably helps a little bit with digestion, although there's going to be a lot of nutrients in that, so nibble on a few before you throw them away. And just use that as you would use the chickpeas, and you won't need as much water because obviously there's fluid in the courgette, the zucchini, and it's very nice, and it works well as a dressing if you want to make it as a dressing. It is lighter, it's easy, it's very quick and easy. There's nothing to cook because the no chickpeas, and so that's what we've done probably more recently, I would say.
Yeah, I keep asking her to do it again because I love it. It's
nice.
like you say, if you add a little bit more water, make it a bit more runny, then it's a great dressing as well. So you've got the best of both worlds. You've got a hummus dressing or a
hummus if you want to make it a bit thicker, and if it ends up getting a little bit too watery, more than you want, then I just grind a few flax seeds and pop them into it, and that thickens it up and gives me a bit of omega-3.
Yeah.
So there are always things you can add to it and help it out a bit.
I love that. I've never once thought of making the hummus out of a vegetable, including a vegetable, sure, right? But not making it out. That is incredible. I'm going to give that a try.
Adding a red pepper as well, some red pepper, it gives it a really nice color, and it gives it a little bit extra taste. I think there's a bit of sweetness there, which it seems to suit it. That's another.
That's wonderful. Annette, Graham, thank you so much for being here with me today. This conversation has been amazing, and I cannot wait for my listeners to hear it.
Thank you.
Welcome back. It was really interesting to me how I found myself regulating my breathing during this chat, and then again when listening back while producing this episode. I've gone back to taping my mouth during the day and have incorporated things like stopping eating 3 to 4 hours before bed, so I'm also not full while sleeping. My snoring is definitely worse when I'm like that too. Have you noticed dysregulated breathing in yourself or someone you love? Do you snore? I'd love to hear about your own journey and how this episode has opened your eyes or changed something for you. Reach out by commenting on the Instagram post for this episode or send me a DM. To connect with Annette and Graham, visit their website, henryandhenryeu.com, and follow them on Instagram at The Vegan Breathing Coaches. I hope you found this episode helpful and inspiring. Please subscribe to the podcast so you never miss an episode. And if you're loving it, please give Did You Bring the Hummus a 5-star rating and leave a review. It's an easy way to keep supporting the show. Be sure to share these episodes with your friends. If you're finding something good here, they will too. If you're a vegan or know a vegan who would be a great fit for the podcast, follow the Be a Guest link in the show notes. Fill out the quiz and I'll be in touch. Check out the Support the Podcast tab on my website for more info on how you can support this show as a monthly contributor or by sponsoring episodes. Don't forget to book that free call with me if you're thinking about embarking on your own vegan voyage. Follow me on Facebook and Instagram at Did You Bring the Hummus, and visit my website, didyouBringTheHummus.com, for more information about me, updates on what I'm working on, new podcast episodes, and all things vegan. Finally, I would love to hear from you. What do you need help with? Is there a topic you want to hear covered on a future episode? DM me on Instagram or send me an email at info@didyouBringTheHummus.com. Thanks for listening.